The one and only Miles Sternfeld. Welcome to the show, Miles.
Hi, Sheida.
Hello.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. I had the honor of being in two of your projects, The Seagull and Romeo and Juliet. I had such a fabulous time. And what I notice about you is that you are such calm, grounded, and you have such centered presence.
Thank you.
Tell me.
Yeah, I think it's important for directing, for sure. There's so much going on. There's so many fires to put out, so many issues coming up, so many new ideas sprouting that you are parsing through.
So many actors you don't know. You don't really know the people that you work with, most of them, right?
Yes, correct. Yeah, so there's different dynamics with everybody in the room, and so I think remaining calm is very important, and I try to remember to myself that everybody's more nervous than I am. I'm not the one going up on there and delivering a soliloquy, right? I don't want to be doing that. So whatever I can do to support people in helping to do that, I think remaining calm is very important, and making sure that everyone in the room feels very comfortable and relaxed so that they can do their best work is important.
But are you like that in your core, or do you have any ritual? Do you work on that?
I don't think I work on that. But I think I do. I think I naturally, I enjoy being challenged, and I like being under pressure.
Ooh.
So, yeah. So I think I tend to sort of remain calm in those situations because I'm just hyper focused on what we're doing and what we need to do next. So I'm not, the pressure doesn't stress me out in any way. I think it helps me focus in on what's going on. Whereas in my everyday life, maybe I'm a bit more like getting lost in dreamland, and I had this idea, right? This sort of being in a structured environment helps me focus in on what I need to do next, and what's the next task, what's the next step that we need to take.
That's the best trait to have, actually, as a leader, as a director, right?
I think it's very valuable. I don't know where it came from, but I'm very glad to have it.
Well, you have it. No wonder you are here.
Oh, thank you.
At such a young age. Congratulations on the Tony that you guys won.
Thank you.
For Sunset Boulevard. How did you end up on the directing team?
So I've been a big fan of Jamie Lloyd's work for quite a while, and we have a very cool opportunity at Columbia. I did my MFA at Columbia, I should say, in directing. And in our third year, we do 2 internships. So we put together a list of directors that we love and want to work with, shows that we want to work on, institutions we want to work at. So Jamie was number 1 on the list for me in terms of directors. So I hunted around for his contact information. It was like doing whatever I can to get a hold of him. And then Anne Bogart, who runs our program, connects us via email to these artists that we want to work with for our internship. So she wrote me an email. I connected with him. Maybe like 2 months later, we had coffee, chatted, and then a couple months later, I had the offer to do the show and get to do my internship on it. So it was very special.
Yeah, it is super special. Such the highest honor there is for theater.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, and the show itself is, I think it's such a moment in Broadway history that we're going to look back at and go, that was a major turning point artistically in theater here.
How did that, and how do you think that will change your trajectory of your career moving forward?
It's a great question. Well, certainly the credit has helped, getting to being a part of that production and being a part of something that's become so acclaimed and gotten so much amazing recognition has been great, to have as part of my bio and part of my experiences. And I think artistically, I just gained so much from the show in terms of my work moving forward, because Jamie's process is so exciting and interesting, and he's such an incredible leader. And so it's not necessarily the hard skills, but the soft skills of that experience of being around him and seeing how he leads a room and how he leads a rehearsal and how he gives notes to his actors has really left a big impression on me.
What is the one, I'm sure you learned so many valuable lessons,
but if you experience,
for sure.
Yeah.
If you were to name one, the one that is on top of your list of the lessons that you learned for directing and for leadership, what would it be? That you didn't know already.
I know I have a few. Well, one is, and I think there's something that I'm thinking about that's interesting, is there's sometimes you sort of know something, but you don't really know it. Do you know what I mean? It's like you sort of have the thought and the awareness, but you haven't actually seen it be put into practice in a way that's effective.
Right. Or even articulated it in a way, right?
Yes, I think so. And what Jamie does is he goes around the room, and it takes him about 45 minutes at the start of the rehearsal process, I would say. But he, by the first 30 minutes of rehearsal, he is truly checked in one-on-one with every single person in that room. Even just saying, hi, how are you? What's going on? How's your day? How are you feeling? Are you excited? So I think that and it's not just like once a day, it's every day he's moving through the space and finding the moment to connect with each person as an individual and build those individual relationships. And I think putting that into practice is super important, because every day you are establishing there is this door that is open for anything you need from me to be available, right? That I am here for you, and that I am truly seeing and recognizing everybody in the space at the beginning, as soon as I can, so that we can all form a group and collaborate together and see how those relationship dynamics unfolds throughout the rest of the day. So it was so fun, because I would just sort of watch him, and I don't even know if it's conscious or unconscious, but it's certainly something I grabbed from him in really just respecting how he follows through on his word. I think there are a lot of directors who say, oh, I'm creating a safe space, I'm making a space where everyone feels comfortable with this and that, but it's not always necessarily followed up by action. And he is somebody who definitely follows through with action.
It sounds like he creates this process of becoming one as a whole, right?
Yes. Yes, everyone is very on the side of the show and the story we're telling and the vision for it, which is really important. There's no real skepticism. There's no resistance. Everybody is putting their all into it, willing to take risks, willing to go for it, and he's supporting everybody in doing that, which I think is how you end up with something as bold and innovative as Sunset Boulevard.
Yes. I noticed you do also, your system is different too than what I have already experienced. Actually, when I started working on the Seagull, the preparation that we did and the kind of getting to know each other, connecting, you get to know your actors and what they're capable of and how to get a sense of them. We did a bunch of very interesting exercises. Did you come up with those exercises? Would you be willing to talk about that, or it's top secret?
No, it's not top secret. I'm thinking back to those times. We should say Seagull was what, 2 years ago?
Yes.
2 years ago.
We sang our pieces.
Oh yes, we did
Remember
character
it?
exercises.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we did character exercises.
So
That
did you
is,
come up with those?
it's a sort of milesified version of bits and things I've collected from people along the way.
Okay.
Anne Bogart, the head of our program, does have a sort of viewpoint exercise in character development that she developed that I pulled some things from and kind of zhuzhed it up and made it my own. And Diane Paulus, who I did Finding Neverland with, who's also an alum of our program and studied under Anne, does her own version of that exercise as well. So I saw her do it first because I worked with her right when I moved to New York and saw her do that and had never seen anything like that before. And then once I worked with Anne, then saw her version of it and then kind of found my own version, which is really what the program is encouraging you to do is we make a lot of work and we learn a lot of things and we get to take those things and put them into practice and see how they work for us and then adapt and adjust and try throwing in some of our own ideas into the mix. So we're forming our own individualized processes. So that was fun because throughout those shows, I think you probably even noticed from Seagull to Romeo and Juliet, the processes were different because it was a total time of experimentation for me in terms of seeing what's working, what maybe didn't have a strong impact in the final result of the production, or something that I worked for this specific piece, but maybe I thought wouldn't work for something different. So I was, playing around and seeing what landed.
Interesting. Well, both were super successful. And so they happen, your productions, rehearsal is so short, right? We didn't really rehearse too long.
No, I think we had
like a lot of every day almost.
Yeah, we had the length of time I think was pretty healthy. We had like 4 or 5 weeks, but they're only like 3 hours a day, which is about half the time or less of what, a normal rehearsal process would be.
So the point that I wanted to bring up is that we all actors, they all have their lives, right? We just come in for our rehearsal and then we go home. Most of us, they don't come every day, right? Depends on our role, depends on the, scene that we work on. But you are there all the time. And you were at school during the day and then you go to rehearsal until 10, 11 p.m. every day for like weeks.
That's right.
And you still are so calm and collected and in the best mood and always available. How do you keep that balance as a person? What do you do? How do you keep your core intact?
That's a great question. Sleep. Trying to get as much sleep as possible. Okay. I think for me, it's harder to go from doing one thing and then go into doing the next thing. And so actually being in class during the day and then going to rehearsal was helpful because I'm still in the same sort of mind frame.
I see.
So I think it was beneficial that my whole day sort of centered around one thing in a sense that I needed to focus on. I think it's sometimes it's harder sometimes when you're rehearsing during the day, but then at night you're like, well, now what do I do? You know what I mean? Or you have to switch your brain and now you're like, okay, now I'm into being a partner or being, a family member, or I'm into, I have to go do, some personal business or whatever, you have to sort of change your brain a little bit and just shift. And I didn't have to shift while I was in grad school. I was just like on the directing train 24/7. So just trying to get as much rest as possible and making sure you eat and enjoying it. I think you have to remind yourself that it's not all, you can't take it for granted. It's not all guaranteed. So I really wanted to enjoy every moment of it because I knew it would go by so quickly.
What do you mean what wasn't guaranteed?
That the experience, you know, that it's as I was going through grad school, it's something I wanted to do for so long. So you're in it, and then you're also recognizing that it's happening, which means it's going to end, right? So you're balancing that out for yourself, of really trying to enjoy and take in every moment, because it's gonna come
Good
to
for
an end
you.
at some point.
Good for you. That sense of appreciation and gratitude. When you were like 6, 7 years old,
Hmm.
you always want to end up here, or life brought you here?
I definitely had the theater bug
You
for
did.
4 or 5, I would say.
You have an artistic background. You have a. Would you explore that a little?
Yes, sure. So my grandma on my father's side was very into theater. She played the piano. She was an artist. She sculpted and painted. And my grandpa, her husband, was a chemist. So they sort of had like science and art brains put together. And then my uncle on that side was a theater director as well in Cleveland. So the arts were around me. I heard about his shows that were going on. My grandma would, listen to the record of Fiddler on the Roof and Barbra Streisand and things like that. So it was always sort of around me.
Mm-hmm.
And on my mom's side, my mom and my grandma loved old musical movies. So I watched a lot of musical movies, and so that exposure, I think, had a big impact on me. And then they started taking me to see shows and taking me to see musicals, and then I started putting on musicals at home with my friends, and adapting stories or Disney movies and putting on plays in our basement.
And you directed them or played in them?
I did both, but
Okay.
I didn't really know. I mean, I guess I knew what a director was because of my uncle, but I didn't really know what he did. I just sort of knew that he was in charge.
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely assumed naturally this role of directing these shows and organizing them, bringing people together, saying, I want to do this story, or we should do this musical, and let's meet and come together and do this. So that was, I think, sort of innate. Is just sort of something that I wasn't reaching towards. I just sort of naturally.
So it was like it's like when you have something within you and then you're in an environment and the environment causes that like light bulb to go bang,
Mhm.
here it is, I am the director. But
Yeah.
you didn't study directing immediately. You were a musical theater student, right?
Yeah, yes, I performed, I acted and sang. So I think once I was like, as you were saying, 7-ish,
Mm-hmm.
then I started becoming old enough to actually audition for shows in my community. So I started going to auditions and singing, and I could sing. People knew that I liked to sing, and I could sing probably around like 5. I would, if I'm remembering correctly.
Did you take
Um,
classes?
hmm?
Did you ever take classes?
Oh yeah, I studied voice for a very long time.
Okay.
Yeah. So once I started auditioning, that sort of veered me out of the world of directing, even though I didn't really realize what I was doing was directing. But I focused more on performing and going to acting camp and taking singing lessons and performing in musicals. And that started to dwindle down a bit towards the end of high school, but I wasn't overly aware of it.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of my friends were sort of picking up steam. They wanted to be in every show. It didn't matter. They wanted to play every role. And I was slowing down. I wanted to work backstage. I wanted to help assistant direct. I wanted to work on lights. I wanted to work on sound. I just wanted to be a part of something that I thought had meaning and impact. And I was less interested in doing every show I could get my hands on as an actor. So I was still acting. I just was being very choosy, as choosy as a high school student could be about what shows I wanted to do and what roles I wanted to play, because I also wanted to be a part of so many other of the departments. But I went to school for musical theater. I had already decided that was what I was going to do, and then once I got there, I immediately knew that I wasn't as hungry for it as everyone else who was there.
So then how did you end up in directing?
I left after one semester.
Left school?
Yeah,
Not
I stayed for, no. So I went to school in Pittsburgh. I moved to Pittsburgh to go to school. I stayed for one semester. I wrote it out and I left and I started applying to directing programs in New York. There are very few undergraduate directing programs for theater. So I auditioned or interviewed. They were all a little bit different, but I did some of that and I didn't get in anywhere.
At first.
Yeah, I didn't get into anywhere for undergrad, but I got into Fordham just as an undergraduate student, but I didn't get into the directing program.
Okay.
So I went to Fordham for a bit, and then I started my company, and I started working for another company, and then eventually that started to become so consuming that I left and I didn't finish my undergraduate degree. So I had about 2 years completed by the time that I left.
So there's just so many bold choices and so many bold actions that you took on your own terms, and I love it.
Oh, thanks.
Well, that's what took you this far and redirected you, because you went by your inner voice, right? What made you quit? Nobody told you to quit, right?
No, I mean, a lot of people were telling me not to. They were saying you should stay. Also, I think there's a bit of an adoration for people who sing and perform, right? There's this, especially in communities outside of New York, where people know that you might be moving to New York and having a career there. They want you to do that. They want to support you and see you succeed in that pursuit. So a lot of people were saying, "Oh, but you're such a great singer, or you have to be on stage. Don't leave, don't quit." And I knew it didn't have anything to do with my my opinion on my own talent as an actor or a singer. That it just didn't bring me as much joy as directing did. And I had just directed something before I went to undergraduate school. So that experience opened it up for me to kind of reflect and realize that I really had started to veer away from performing in high school and see where everybody else my age was at in terms of their love and commitment to acting and singing that I didn't feel anymore. So
let me ask you this then. You said that didn't bring me joy. Please correct me if I'm wrong. That didn't bring me joy what I was doing. Therefore, I quit and then went another direction. Was it just what happened, or there were a moment of, am I really doing the right thing here, quitting? Did you ever doubt yourself, but still went the way that you thought would be the right thing?
That's a great question. I think while I was directing, people in the cast were reflecting back to me that I had something there, that there was some kind of alignment with what I was doing. And there was people, saying, "Oh, I think you could really do this." And I was very against that. I was very in denial about it. I was like, "That's so nice. Thank you. But no, I'm going to school for musical theater. This is just kind of a one-time thing that I'm doing." And then once that experience ended, that's when I realized that some of those people were probably right. And I missed doing that and having that experience. So I think it was just listening to my own emotions and listening to how I was feeling in that moment, and not be willing to settle or allow myself to be in an experience or an environment where I'm not happy or not feeling like I'm fulfilling my full potential. So I knew what the day that I got to my undergraduate program, I remember I had one class, one meeting where we all sat and talked, and everyone was so excited to be there. And I was like, the thought of getting up and doing a monologue was deathly. And I wasn't nervous. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't like I was like, oh, I think I'm just nervous. I'm just, meaning I truly was like, I know I can do this, but I have no interest. And being here is I just knew it was wrong. So
I love this. I love this. You put it the best way. Because it's not the fact that you're like, whether am I capable? It's like you're so true to yourself.
Yes, I think you have to be as best as you can. And just listening to yourself, being in conversation with yourself is so important. I talk to myself all the time.
I love it, Miles. Yes. Good. You and I both. Because the other day I was walking and talking to myself, and this guy comes up to me and is like, excuse me, are you talking to your dog? No, I'm talking to myself. That is how, okay, that was my next question, because I wanted to ask you how you keep your imagination alive. Don't talk to yourself. I'm answering this question on my end, but please do answer. I would love to hear your thoughts, because I think the fact that we connect to our younger parts, that's the core of and the source of our imagination, right?
Yes.
And being always connected to it, regardless of what happens, and always talk. Okay, that is my way. Please share yours.
Yes. I spend a lot of time just in dreamland. And I think, especially when I'm not working on a project, as in I'm not in rehearsal in that moment where you feel like I'm showing up to a space to do, whatever it is that we have on the schedule to do that day. And this is something that I'm working on, is recognizing that your brain is working. Okay. When you are visualizing a production, or you're visualizing your future or where you want to be going next, that is work. It's just not work that you can see that has actualized yet. It's not tangible. So sometimes I think, oh my God, this week I didn't do anything, and I'm starting to think about this a lot, that I have to remind myself, oh, you did a lot. It's just a lot that other people can't see yet. And knowing that you might feel exhausted because your brain is working so hard. So I think, I don't know, I'm someone who just makes space for that. I don't have to think about, okay, I'm going to clear out my schedule for the next 3 days and just focus and sit down and think about this. It more just kind of comes and goes. But when it comes, I know that I need to listen to it. I don't need to make other things to fill up my day to stay busy, which will distract me from that idea that I'm percolating on. So I think there are probably a lot of people who feel that they need to stay busy, or that they need to be doing something, and they don't think that is doing something, but it is. And it's just carving out time, I think, and giving yourself permission to have those thoughts and be in conversation with yourself, and build your vision board, essentially.
For sure. That makes you really intuitive. Right? And I noticed that about you when we were rehearsing, that you love to take risks, right? You are a risk taker.
I'm more afraid of not taking a risk. I'm more afraid of doing something that people say, oh, I've seen that before, or that's dated or not interesting, or the obvious thing to do. I'm always much more interested in challenging myself and challenging the group to see what can we do that's never been done before. How can we explore these characters in a new way? And I think that's important, because the work you're doing has to speak to the current moment, especially when you're doing something like the Seagull or Romeo and Juliet. Those are pieces that are obviously old. They've been around for a long time. And so that the fear of, oh, I'm telling a version of the story, or going about telling this or interpreting this in a way that doesn't align with the current moment is what makes me go, oh, that makes me nervous.
But that's what makes you so brilliant, because you transform these very classical pieces into contemporary magic, what we did with the Seagull.
That was a lot of fun.
I am sad for whoever did not see because it was amazing, like contemporary art, but classical Seagull.
Mm.
Chekhov
I
is
think
not
those,
easy at all.
no, it's not. And I think that's why they stand the test of time. And I also like history, so it's also exciting to go and investigate the history of that piece and what was going on in the world at the time and how they wrote the piece and what impact it had in that current moment, and then think about how that is in conversation with today and how that relates to the kind of theater that we're making today.
But how do you connect that era
Mm-hmm.
to today's humanity and today's society? How do you make them so connected that they feel like so natural and authentic and real?
I think it hinges on ideas. That the ideas within the play span time and circumstance.
Can you give us like
Yes. So like Romeo and Juliet is so much about division, right? Finding love amongst division. And then I have to think about what does that mean in the world today? What is being divided mean in today's world? And that is like, hello, I mean, we are more politically divided, particularly in this country, than ever before. And I think social media and the news and where we're receiving our news is such a huge part of that we're all being sent different messages and we're all subscribing to those messages. And that is truly making us move in opposite directions. So that kind of became the hinge for my angle and vision for that production, was wanting to explore political division and how far can that go on? How long can that go on before something collapses and we all stop and we realize, what are we doing?
yes.
So I think it's ideas. It's thinking about the ideas within the play that they're writing about, or I think more with Chekhov, it's about the form and what Chekhov was doing in terms of writing that is innovative. That was the first time that audiences were seeing naturalism on stage. And now we take that for granted because everything you watch on streaming is super naturalistic and it feels like you're there and it's so believable. But for them, you have to sort of imagine being within their world at that time, what that must have been like to experience something like that. And then think about what naturalism is like today. And that's something that I'm interested in, is thinking about, okay, well, what is our relationship to that now, and how does this piece function in this current moment?